Okay, now the next video is how to create a dynamic field. Means, for example, here I would like to add an invoice. I select the customer name, I select the employee name, but I need to select how many jobs I'm adding. So when you get a car, logical thing that you don't know how many jobs each car will needs. So what we do, we can click here, add jobs, and you can see it's asking me to put, I don't know, like how many the jobs and then how many hours. And then let's say this car needs 3 jobs. I can type this one again and get me the other field for the other jobs and then the other field. So that's 3 different jobs, and I can change them obviously the way that I want. And then I can submit, and that will save me where would will save it to the database. So basically, in this video we're just going to learn how can we add this dynamically. How would we do that? Obviously the field that we're adding, it's in the add new invoice section. So we go to the add invoice section because we're having to do, so it's in here. So the first thing is, if we have 2 things in this section happening. After we fill out the form, we submit the form, and this is the add invoice, and that's what the code is. So I have an if statement. If this button has been clicked, then this is what you're going to run. If it's not clicked, that means I need to show the video, the form. So it's else in here. So in else, I'm creating a form. In the form, the first 2 parts of the form, which is the select a customer and select an employer, is just a dynamic drop-down menu from the customer and the customer, showing just the customer first name and last name. And if when selected, it's returning the customer ID. And then the other one is the same as the employer. So just select everything from the employer, but I only want the first name and last name. You can actually here select first name and last name. Will be more efficient. And then also the option value, it must be the ID because we only want the ID. We're not really worried about the first name and the last name. So, and then the next bit is we created a container. This container or this section, it's basically just, it has an ID. So this section has an ID. It's ID called add field. So you could say add field, add jobs, whatever. And then the reference for that section. So I made it as a link. You can make it as a button. And then that's mean if you do it as a button, that's mean on click you're gonna call that function that I'm gonna show you in a minute in the JavaScript. But I made it as a link, and I said the link you're going to come to the same, when you do link hash mean you're coming back to the same page. So this page will be executed. Now, when you press on the link, because you're coming back to this page here, that means you're going to run this code again. Now, when you run this code again, obviously will go through the JavaScript, which is here. That JavaScript is here. In the JavaScript, you can see it's not a function or anything, so it's gonna run anyway because there is no function. So this one here, it says execute var counter code 0. In that var counter, and then I start the function. This function is asking if, p add field. Remember, that's the ID of the link that I've created. The link, when it says add jobs, I gave it an ID. So that's the ID for that link. I said if that's been clicked, run the function, which means run this function here. Now, what are you running? You're going to add 1 into 0. And when you add that 1 into 0, every time you're adding 1 to the 0, you're appending this. Appending means adding to the form. So the form is there, there will be no changes in the form, but you're appending to the container. Remember, I put the link in a container by itself. So I'm adding to that container. What am I adding? I'm adding here job number, and I'm just using the counter because this counter will tell me how many jobs, starting with 0. So that tells me how many jobs. And append the field, so you can see it's a text, so it's a string. That's why it has all those quotation marks. Those quotation marks are very, very important because they distinguish between what's a string, what's something that you will have to put it in a string normally, and what is it's a variable. So counter here is a variable, so you can see it's black, but everything else is a string. But I can't put them all in one quotation mark, because when you normally create an input field, you do type and equal, and the type here, number or text, is already under quotation mark in the normal situation. So that's why it should be this quotation mark must be different than that one here. Anyway, so I've added it, closed it in here, semicolon, and then I added another one because I have 2 fields to add at the same time, and then closing the function. So what is happening? Every time you're clicking on that link, because you haven't refreshed the page, so every time you're clicking on that link, this function will be executed, because I said when this is clicked, this is you execute. If it's a button, is different. If it's a button, you're going to name this is a function, and then you say on click, and you're calling this function here. But again, this counter v0 must be out of the function, because if you put it inside the function, that's every time you're calling the function, the counter will return into 0, and that's not right. And then yep, that's it, and that will create this dynamic addition of the form.